Hi everyone, welcome back to another art session with me, Marcy. This is Prints and Paints. Today we are going to do a tutorial on sunflowers. Here in the United States we are celebrating the near end of summer, and this is the time on the East Coast when parts of our country are beginning the cycle of the harvest begins, sunflowers blooming, and the days start to become shorter. I wanted to choose sunflowers as my main theme only because it really showcases the epitome of the end of summer for this area in particular where I live. If you can, real quick, please give a like, share the video, and as always, please subscribe and hit the bell for future videos. Your support means so much to me and I can't thank you enough. Okay guys, so the first things we're going to need is obviously a mandala. You're going to want to use something that's roughly about 12 inches round in diameter. If you're using a vinyl, fine. If you're going to be using MDF hardboard, is which I'm using, just make sure that you have it slightly thick. I'm using mine in 1/4 inch thickness. I don't like to go any thinner than that because you can wind up having your mandalas warp when you put the paint on them. I've tried sealing them, and you can see this is 1/8 inch how thin it is, and these do tend to warp. So keep that in mind when you are picking out what canvas you are going to be using. We want to prep it first. So for MDF, I'm going to get a little medium grade square sandpaper box, and I'm going to just sand the edges to make it nice and smooth, and I'm going to sand the top and bottom. And then I'm also going to prep using the matte acrylic paint. This is lamp black in the DecoArt Americanas. I don't recommend using a multi-surface paint because you could potentially have your markings, whether you're using chalk or watercolor, they could be a little hard to remove when you're done painting. So I try to do base paints with a matte base. So I'm going to do front and back of my MDF, and then I'm also going to do one of the top layer with the green. So we'll do the black first. So again, to remind you, we're going to sand and prep, and then we're going to paint it black. Okay. If you want to use my ruler that I have, please go ahead. If you would rather use a compass, you can do that as well. I'm using a watercolor pencil in the color cream, but you can use whatever you like. You're also going to want to use an egg segment stencil to get your segment lines. The petals will be consisting of the 8 points for that stencil. You can also use a protractor if you like. To mix your paints, you're going to want to use a medium to mix with them to thin them down. You can use pouring medium or Floetrol. Either one works well. You can use painting mixing pots or trays. I'm going to be using the trays for this particular project. I like to use them. They're just easier to clean up. I also like to use fan brushes when I'm painting my base coat. If you want to use a different brush that you have, please by all means, or if you want to roll it on, that's fine. I like to use fan brushes. I'm also going to be using the DIY dotting tools for this project. If you want to use marks or happy dotting or any other kind that you have in the market, that's fine. Just keep in mind that the sizes are slightly off. I'm also going to use my go-to 5 Stylus pen tools that I use. All of these items you can find in the description of this video, so if you would like to purchase them, please check that out. I also have these thin brushes by Zhu Ting. I can leave the link in the description as well. One is fairly large and one is for smaller. These are to help do our swooshes. If you prefer to use a stylus for your swoosh, you can do that as well. This other brush I have is also from, I think, Hobby Lobby. I bought it. Something that's just fairly thin and long. I also have this, it's technically for clay, but you can use it to pull and push your swooshes. I'm using a watercolor pencil as well. This is the Artesias as well. You can see it's a color cream. I don't know if they make this anymore though, guys. The white one I have is, it works okay sometimes. Chalk works well as well. So the colors we're going to be using, so they are a series of yellows, oranges, and greens. Very simple. So these are the colors. I am using all Art Deco Americanas. If you prefer to use folk art or apple barrel, I would just try to stay consistent within the same color tones that I'm using. But please, by all means, get creative. You know, do your own thing. It's okay. So I'm going to be using the Black Forest Green for my base. It's very similar to a dark evergreen color, so I'm using that for my base color. From there, I'm going to have a couple designs that taper off the edges, so they're going to act as like the vines and leaves of the sunflower. So to use those, I'm going to use Citron Green. It's a very bright lime green color. And then to have some contrast with it, I'm going to use Festive Green, which is a more, you know, everyday secondary color green. Okay. So for the yellows, I'm going to use Golden Straw. I'm going to use Cadmium Yellow. I'm going to use Marigold, which Marigold will be falling in between, you know, the more orange spectrum. So you have a bright yellow, then a medium yellow, and then a darker yellow, which is going to be deep ochre. So that's almost like a mustard color. And then the orange colors we're going to use is bright orange, so it's like super bright. And then I'm going to do a muddle tone of that as well, which would be spiced pumpkin. And I'm going to use Cinnamon Stick. Cinnamon Stick is more in the brown family, but it also does have a fair orange tone with it. Okay. If I can show you what burnt orange is a little bit more on the brighter orange tone, whereas the darker tone is on the Cinnamon Stick. So we're going to add some contrast with this. So if you have all these colors, please follow along with me. I'll make sure I leave a list of the colors in the description again. Okay guys, so right now I'm just going to show you a quick sped up version of my base paint. I'm just applying a nice thick layer of the black matte acrylic paint to the top coat. I'm going to be doing the sides as well. Once that dries, I will flip it over and I will also do the back portion of that. Okay, so you'll have all sides of that black. Then once we're done with that, we're also going to apply the green color, okay, and this will act as our top coat. So now that this is dry, you can see that we have our top coat. It might be a little hard to see. I can show you. So this is the black, it's the back of it, and then flipping it over you can see the green. So it's a very slight tone. It is very dark, but you will see it is a nice green background. Okay, so that is the Black Forest green we use. Evergreen, if you use that, it might be slightly brighter in the tone, but you'll still have a nice dark green color. So now I'm going to pull out my ruler. This is the ruler that I have designed. I have it available on my Etsy as well as my website. If you are interested in purchasing this, the quick summary of the ruler is just that I have a 1/8 inch hole on every 1/4 inch tick mark, and you can be able to fit a marker or pen or any kind of pencil into that slot of that hole. I do come equipped with a 1/16 inch acrylic dowel, or you can do a tack that is included. Okay, this can achieve a mandala up to 24 inches in diameter because it can act as double that, so 12 and 12. Most of my projects I usually do 24 inches, so again, I'll just take us out of the package and show you real quick. So all I want to do is I'm going to line up really quick with my ruler. It's not quite 12 inches, my mandala. It's about 11 2/3, I'd say. So, but that's okay. I'm not going to stress over that. It's just slightly off. Sometimes when you purchase these online, that can happen. So I'm just quickly demonstrating. I'm finding the center of it. You can find in the top portion how to do that center part. Okay. I do have a video on how to find the center of your circles. Okay, so from there I like to use a little hammer, and this just helps me get my tack with in a secure spot. So I'm just going to insert my tack into my 0 and quickly tap that in so that it's nice and secure, and then from there I will be able to draw my guidelines, and they will all be perfectly placed a 1/4 inch from each other. This helps keep your dots aligned. It keeps them perfectly evenly spaced apart as well. It's a wonderful tool to use, and I really appreciate everyone who has taken the time to look up my product and purchase my product. I have all your names, and I just thank you so much for that. So this is how we do our guidelines. It's a quick method, done in no time. So we can put our rulers away now. So again, these lines that go in a circle are called guidelines. So when we refer to guidelines, the vertical and horizontal lines are considered segment lines. So if you can remember that, guys, it's a good way to understand how to make your mandalas when you're first starting out. So with our segment lines now, we're going to use our stencil. If most of you have bought kits online, you should have this stencil within those variations of stencils that you received. If not, you can always purchase one of these on Amazon or anywhere else. All you're going to do is just center that. You're going to have to hold it, or unless you have something that you can tack in place. And then I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm just going to make quick little lines. These are just my reference lines, and when I finish with that, I'm going to end them off with a ruler. Okay, so I'm just doing these lines. I'm not going to do those inner portions. Those inner portions are the same concept as my ruler, but they just don't go as far out, if you think about it. They might not be spaced a 1/4 inch apart. I think they are. They could be 3/4 inch apart. Or 1/2 inch, I'm not sure. Okay, so there's our eight segments. And now I'm going to get my ruler again. This is why I like to use my ruler, because I can use it for multi-purpose reasons. Okay, so you want to make sure that that ruler goes a little bit over the edge, and then you're going to line up the 2 lines, and then you're just going to make one big segment line. In this way, this helps with making further designs down as you work your way out too. Okay, so then like you just turn it and then you make the other segments. So altogether you should have 8 lines, guys. When I start to do, you know, other mandalas that have, say, the cone flower, I can work up to almost 24 segments, and it can get quite confusing, but they really do help keep your dotting very, very uniformed. Alright, so how to execute our design now. Sunflowers have a few components to them. So, you know, they have their center, which has the seeds to them. They have their petals. And then they usually have some leaves that wrap around them, correct? So that's like the components of the flower. I think, so counting out, I know that I can count 1/4 inch increments. So about 1 inch out, I'd say. So we're going to stop at, say, the 4th line, and that'll be 1 inch out from the center. Okay, so I'm just going to make like little tick marks, little X's, so I know that that's our center of our sunflower. And then from there we're going to make our petals. And the outer perimeter, we're going to do a border of dots, so remember to draw some circles on the outside, just to keep in mind that that is, you know, where it is. So let's zoom in real quick and show you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, so the 4th line out, so that's our center of our, where the seeds will be, so to speak, okay? And then the outer perimeter, we're going to do a series of dots. We're also going to do some leafy patterns within that section there, but I think what we're going to do is so on the 8 segments will be the larger petals, and then in between those we'll do smaller ones, because sunflowers kind of have different sizes of petals. So I'm going to use a stencil that I have made. I do have this available on my Etsy account. I sell them in a pack of 3, so there are 3 different sizes. This large one is, I believe, the 8-inch stencil. And then I have I believe it's a 6-inch and then a 4-inch. So they're all together in a pack if you want to purchase them. Otherwise, just freehand it if you'd like. I like to have it more uniformed, so I rather just use a stencil, and then I know that they're all going to look exactly the same as the other one, because it's very easy to slip up and draw and not have one look the other way, right? So I'm going to use my stencil. If you're interested in getting it, again, like I said, I have a 3-pack available for you to purchase. I try not to make these very expensive for people. You know, I keep it within a friendly range of money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the point on the 4th line, which is the last line that we had, right? And then I'm going to line up my center points there of that petal. And then I'm going to draw just on the outer part of that petal, and that's how I will make my flower petal, okay? And then I'll do the next one, and I'll continue this all the way around, obviously. Okay guys, so when you remove that last petal, or you do freehand, you're going to come out with a design like that. So you should have 8 petals. So I started at the 4th line. So I ended like in between 11 and 12 line from the center, just so you can see where it is. Okay, so I stopped in between the 11 and 12th line. And like I said, I started at the 4th line. Okay, so now the next size I'm going to do is the 6-inch stencil. It's a little bit smaller, okay? Yeah, so that's my 6-inch stencil. And this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to have to eyeball this one, guys. So I'm going to try my best to so I'm going to eyeball this. It's going to be a little tough. Right around the 5th line, I'd say, guys. So not the 4th one that we had the other ones, but the 5th line. I'm going to put that top piece, that portion on there. And then I'm going to, where those lines intersect, let me show you and zoom in so you can see it. Do you see how those lines start to intersect there? So I'm just doing that lower portion, okay, where the intersects. So it's really just like a little V shape that you're making, and then the top part too. I'm not going to do the other sections because it might confuse me, so I'm just imagining that this is underneath that, you know, the larger petal. Okay, so again, I'm just going to do that top little portion, and I'm going to do the bottom portion. And I'll do that for each one all the way around. Okay guys, so we finished our stencil. We have our smaller leaves, and we have our top larger leaves. Okay, we're going to focus on the smaller portion where the leaves are going to fall. Okay, so that's where our green color is going to go. So to zoom in, we're going to do a little sketching here, guys. So get your pencils out, and you know, I just want you to understand this whole dimensional thing before we start painting. Okay. So again, the bottom half is going to be those small dots, the border. And then the larger leaf that we're focusing on, we're going to do a swoosh starting on the bottom. And I'm going to do a swoosh up the center. And then the next line up, I'm going to do a swoosh there, that way. And a swoosh on the other side. And then I'd say we're going to stop a little bit before it, and we're going to do a dot underneath the large leaf. So we'll do dots at the very end of the leaves, or the petals I should say, sorry. And then we'll do the swooshes that come up to meet that dot, like so. Okay, so that's just roughly what our swooshes are going to look like. Then with the smaller, shorter petal, we're going to do a series of swooshes that surround it, like that. Okay. We might do them with our brushes. I have a feeling we'll probably stick with our stylus with this one. And then again, I think in the center, I'll eyeball from where the petal falls straight down, and I'll do a swoosh there. I'll do another swoosh on the other side of it. Lots of swooshes. I want them all to fall on the same line. So if I have that dot on that top line there, I'm gonna want that swoosh to stop a little bit shorter. So just keep that in mind, guys, when you're sketching these out and painting them. We'll go through this step by step, don't worry. This is just a sketching rough idea. We're going to do a little bit of a swirl, so it looks like a little bit of a vine swirling around. Okay. And these are just like small elements to tie in, to fill in this nice area. So again, just to summarize real quick, we're going to do 2 swooshes on either side of the small petal, and then we'll do swooshes coming up the center. We'll do dots on the border. Okay. Remember to go the next line down from that dot to the large one, so right there. You'll do a swoosh there. One up from that line, we'll do a swoosh. we'll go through this, guys, so don't stress if you feel like I'm going too fast. You can even just watch this portion if you like. I'm really just sketching out my ideas just to show you. I'll also probably do a dot up there to fill that portion in as well. And then we'll also have our little curly Q vine come down. Okay. So that's roughly what we're going to be designing, guys, okay? Now, let's see. So, I've mixed my colors, okay? I want you to mix your Cadmium Yellow, your Marigold, your Deep Ochre, okay? So I have those 3 shades on the top, and then on the bottom I have my orange, my bright orange, I have my spiced pumpkin, and I have my cinnamon stick. So if you need to pause the video, please take your time, mix your paints together. Remember, I did a 1-to-1 ratio with my paint, 1 ratio to my pouring medium. If you're using DIYs, you want to use the size 14 dotting tool. Okay, something comparable to that, I'd say if you're using marks, I would say you're probably going to want to use maybe like 11, I'd say 11 or 12. I don't know the other dotting tools, I'm sorry about that, guys. So we're going to just carefully try our best to get our center dot centered, alright, with our Cadmium Yellow. Alright, so that's our center dot. You can clean that tool off now and put it away. You're not going to need it anymore. Now we're just going to make a series of just random dots, and I'll show you what I mean by this. I'm going to get the green one out. It's considered the size 1. So if you have these kinds of Stylus tools that have the clear with the spiral in them, it's usually the smaller one there. It's the clear one. If you have a DIY, just go with the size 1. Alright. Something that's very small that can help do like micro dots. I'm just going to do a dot row all the way around the perimeter of my center dot with the same color yellow, okay? So I'll start at one end. If you like to do it to where you start on one side and then do the other side and you kind of go back and forth and meet each other in the center, you can do it that way. I prefer to just go around in a circle. I never have issues really with spacing because I've done it for a while. So, you know, just try your best to get them equally spaced. That's all I can ask, is try your best to, you know, get your dots equally spaced apart. It takes lots of practice to do this and get this to where you can just start dotting around in a natural circle and not worrying about coming up short, or, you know, you have too many close together and things like that. So, you know, try your best, guys. It should look something like this. Alright. I'm going to switch my tools now. I think so we're going to go with a size, I'd say we'll go with size 3. Okay? I'm going to use the blue stylus. This is the size 3. Remember that on one end it is going to be smaller, so you'll have a size 2 on one end. You can see when you hold them up together that they all will be one size, and then the other size there'll be a gradient of larger dottings. You want to use the larger part. So I'm going to go into my Marigold. Okay. This one I'm going to start in the center of one of those dots. If you can see where I placed that. Okay. So I started in that. Now realistically I'd like to try to be in the center of each dot, but because of that size gradients of difference, it's not going to happen. So I'm just going to go around and just place my dots perfectly spaced apart. Alright, if you can't get it, don't worry about it, just keep going. They look very similar in the video as color, but I can tell you that they do have a nice gradient of color here. Alright, so now we're going to go to our size 4, which is our purple stylus. They're slightly larger in size. You could see the difference of the two. I'm going to use my deep ochre for this. And now because I'm closer in size, I'm going to be able to put my dots in between each other. Alright, this is a good practice method to do when you're first starting out. So I'm also following on that next line. So I'm using the guidelines as my reference as well. So those dots are going to fall in this, on that line, but they're also going to be spaced in between each yellow dot. Okay? I hope you understand that. If you have trouble, please reach out to me. I will be more than happy to help you. Okay, so you have those 3 colors now fading out. Now we're going to go into our oranges. So now I'm going to use the last size I have is a size 5. For the Stylus Tools. And I'm going to go into my bright orange. And once again, I'm going to place that dot in between my yellow ochre dots I had. I'm also kind of having enough space to where I'm falling in the negative space in between, you know, that outer line there and from where the yellow ochre was. Okay, so I'm just going to place those all around as well. I know I'm doing this in a fairly fast time lapse, but you can please pause the videos and take your time with this, okay? Alright, so the next color, because I did 5 with the stylist, I'm now going to move into doing my DIYs. I'm also going to use the size 5s, but I only do that because the size 5 in the DIY can and will make potentially a larger dot, and it'll be slight in change. So that's why I'm going to use the same number. It's just that the dotting tool for DIY is going to make a bigger dot. So I'm going to go into my spiced pumpkin. And again, the same concept. I'm probably going to either fall on or a little bit below that line there, the guideline. And again, I'm going to try to make it to where I'm squeezing those dots in between the bright orange. They're not so close to where they're touching the bright orange, but you can see that they fall in between slightly. So now I'm just going to flip my dotting tool over and I'm going to use size 6. And this is my last color, which is the cinnamon stick. And now you can see that you're falling basically right on the 4th line, and that's the inch out. So that's our center point. Okay, so there you can see we are finished now with our center portion. So to zoom out, that's what it's going to look like. That's our center point. Okay, we can do a couple little details with this. So I think what we're going to do is add some micro dots. This will just help it fill in those negative areas that we have, the negative spaces. So I'm using the size 1, and I'm going to probably start with the deep ochre color, only because those other Those other dots I have, the Marigold and the yellow Cadmium, are way too small. They'll start blending together. So I'm going to start with the deep ochre, and I'm just going to do one small dot in between each deep ochre color dot, okay? And this will just make like a nice little element. It'll help fill in, like I said, the negative space you have. It just gives it an extra little added bonus. So I'm going to do the same thing now, same dotting tool size as well. I'm going to do the bright orange, and then again I'm going to flip over and do size 2 this time for the orange. So I'm going to go into my bright orange. So now I'm going to go into my bright orange, and I'm going to do another small micro dot. That surface. Okay, and then I'm going to do my spiced pumpkin as well. And then I'm also going to do the cinnamon stick. So that's how that should all tie in nicely, guys. Now I'm going to get my golden straw color out. This I'm going to use for a border that go around the petals. Okay, I'm going to focus on doing my large petals first. So I'm going to mix my paint up real quick. I'm going to do half and half, remember. I'm doing that 1-to-1 ratio. So half my tray becomes paint, half my tray becomes the pouring medium, and then I mix it together. Alright. I'm going to use the size 7 dotting tool. And right now I'm just going to tie in that outer perimeter, and I'm just going to dot all the way around. Now you'll notice I am going to go a little bit over the petals when I am doing this. That's okay. Remember, it's just basically the next line down. You're going to do these dots, okay? Now I'm going to get my size 1 stylus. And I'm going to do a little bit more micro dots. So I'm going to zoom in and show you what I'm going to do here. So you can see those size 7 dots there with the straw color, the golden straw. They fell on that next line that we did. And now I'm just going to do some little micro dots just on the bottom half, just to fill in that little area. Okay. It ties the center in, but it also helps with the petals, okay? Because realistically, when flowers come out of a petal, they're not sharp pointy at the inside, they come out to a point. So we don't want points on the center, okay? I'm going to use my size 4 dotting tool, the purple. And what I'm going to do with this one now is I'm just following that perimeter line for the large petal with the golden straw. So it's the same color I just used. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dot right on the line. If you can even see, my dots are kind of falling like the line is centered on my dot. So I'll do 1 or 2 here, and then I'm going to have you finish them on your own. Alright. So again, I'm just dotting. I'm dipping every time, and I dot 1 dot for the size 4 dotting stylus. And then as I start to get down towards the end, if you notice where the smaller petal falls, it's basically on my next line coming up. Right here. I'm going to stop. Okay, so I'm using that small petal as my reference, and then I'm going to basically dot, and then I'm going to walk my dots down. So the petal will have a tapered look to it. Okay, so that line that I'm pointing at is going to be your last line. Alright, so you have about 2 lines left until you get to the edge. the end of that point. So now I'm just going to show you, I'm tapering off like that, okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, alright? Now remember, if you don't remember how to do walking dots, you basically just want to dot, and then you don't put the paint, you know, your stylus back in the paint, you just continue down. And as that paint starts to come off of your dotting tool, it'll create this small, you know, walking dot effect. So that's what it should look like, guys, once you finish. I'm going to use the size 2 dotting tool now. You can use the white one. I just basically flipped over my dotting tool I had because they each have 2 on one side. And this time I'm just going to do the same thing. So now I'm just going to dot the smaller petal there. And I say I get about halfway down, and then I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to walk the dot. So it looks like I got about 3 dots, regular size dots, and then I walk those dots down, just like that. So it should look something like that, guys, okay? Okay, so we finished our outer outline of our petals. So we're going to focus on filling our petals now, right? So we're just going to use a variation of colors, and we're going to use a series of different dotting tools for this. I say the largest dotting tool that we're going to use is a size 6. And I'm just kind of break up the petal into like 3 little portions. So if you can imagine, if I'm using 3 different colors, the closer part to the center is going to be more of the orange tone. The middle will be like the marigold color, and then the end is going to be like the cadmium yellow. All right, I'm looking to get like a nice gradient of color throughout the petal, and the only reason I'm doing that really is to, because, you know, when you look at a sunflower, the leaf isn't like usually a solid color. Sometimes you have that nice, you know, gradient almost of like different orange tones, and they kind of spread out. It almost looks tie-dyed. So again, I'm going to use like the bright orange for the inner portion, and then I'm going to use marigold, and then I'm going to use the cadmium yellow. Alright, so to show you how I'm going to fill this in, alright, I mean, you know, like I said, you can use like darker tones, but just keep in mind that you have a limited amount of space to do any kind of dots like that, to do all the colors. So I'm using the size 6 dotting tool, and I'm going to dip it in my bright orange, and I'm just going to like randomly place a few of those dots on that upper portion of the petal just to fill in. So we'll do, and like I said, guys, this is just random, so there's no science to it. Just do whatever feels right, okay? I'm just going to make sure I have a nice amount of large dots. I might even flip the dotting tool over and use size 5, and then I can do some dots there as well. Okay, so there's my size 5. I'm going to do a few of them. Maybe like 2 or 3. So I consider this just freestyle painting. This is just what feels right, what you like to do, okay? And then I'm also probably going to use the size 2, alright? And I'm also going to use like the size 1. So size 2, I'm just going to kind of fill in between those dots there. And then once I finish that portion, I'm going to also get like the size 1 dotting tool and even do even more smaller dots, like micro dots, in between all those. Okay? Alright, so I think that looks pretty good with the orange. So, if you notice, I have a few that overhang a little bit, just so that I have a nice, you know, integration of the colors together. And so now I'm just going to go back to my size 6, and I'm going to go into my Marigold, and I'm going to dot some larger dots, the size 6. And again, I'm just randomly placing them. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just making sure that I stay within that middle mark of the petal. You know, have a few that stagger out a little bit, that goes into where the yellow is going to begin. I'm going to do a few, maybe the blue, or I'm going to do maybe the size 5, flip it over, and then I'm going to do a few of the number 2, and then I'm going to do the number 1, which is like micro dots. And that's really just how you do that section, okay? It becomes very repetitive, obviously, and I might even do a little orange here and there just to kind of bring those two together. You know, what I like best about these kinds of projects is, like, it's all freestyle. It's open to whatever concept you come up with in your mind. You know, if you want to do it differently, do a different pattern. Maybe go around the perimeter of the outside and work your way in as if it's a swirl. You know, the sky's the limit with this kind of design. If you do find that you made something really neat, please, like, share it in an email, share it on Facebook, and tag me. I would love to see your work. It brings me so much joy when I see people doing certain designs that were from my tutorial. It really makes me feel happy to see that. You have no idea. It warms my heart. Alright, so I'm just going to do a couple more. I'm doing size 2. And then I'm just going to, you know, eventually just go into doing this size 1 and do the little micro dots to fill in. Alright, so that's complete with the Marigold. And then, of course, we're going to go right in and we're going to do our Cadmium Yellow now. Okay guys, so this is just roughly a quick time lapse just to show you how to get this done. So I'm just doing the same dotting tools, filling in the areas, and when I finish, you're going to look something like that. Then you're going to go through and finish with the rest of it. And this is how it should look when you are finally finished. So I filled in the large ones and I did the small ones. I kind of kept where I stopped in the areas the same so that you could see how there's orange and then it tapers out to the medium yellow and then it goes into the bright, okay? We're going to continue to move on, so you know, if you need to stop the video to finish everything, go back and watch it, that's okay. Pull your greens out for now. You want to pull out your two mainly, the two colors mainly, and you know, you can use the Black Forest Green for touching up anything, and your straw yellow as well. So we're going to mix these two colors for now, and then I'll meet you back here. And so now I'm going to start with my size 5 stylus. Alright, I'm going to use the Festive Green. And I'm going to start in the inner portion, so the smaller petals first. Alright, and I'm just going to basically dot on the one side of the petal. Now I could try to pull that with the size 5 dotting tool, but I feel like I'm not going to get a nice tapered effect to it. So I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to use the size 2 dotting tool. This is much thinner and smaller, and it'll help give me that nice tapered swoosh. So all I'm doing is pulling from the center up to my point, and then pulling on either side to create that nice little swoosh. Alright. I would recommend cleaning off your stylus every time you pull so you don't get a lot of paint gunked up. So on the other side as well, I'm going to dot another dot and then do the swoosh there as well and pull up. And I'm just pulling up to that center corner part where the two petals meet. Alright. And then once I finish that, I'm going to do another dot next to it. Alright. So I'm going to use the same size, and I'm just going to dot a little bit up from the line. If you notice, I did the first one's on the line, the next one I'm going to do slightly up from that. And I'm just going to join that up at a much sharper curve, and I'm going to join it to that other swoosh. So they're kind of connected at the end. So you should have something that starts to formulate like that and looks something, you know. They kind of look like how cherries are attached almost. Alright, so that should be how those swooshes look. I'm going to do those on the small petals, remember, all the way around. So I'll do that first. So now that we're back and I've finished those, I'm going to continue with my size 5 dotting tool. I'm going to go into my Citron Green this time. And I'm just going to do one simple small dot with the size 5. And that's just going to kind of tie in my swooshes together. So I'll do that on each one all the way around. It's just a quick time lapse to show you. Okay. These little dots kind of are a nice element to tie in. Alright, so we're going to stay with the Citron Green now. We're going to get a little bit larger of a dotting tool. We're going to go with a size 8 this time. Alright. So we're going to start at the bottom. And we're going to go to the last line that we have, because the last portion, negative space, we're going to do the dots just to border it. But so the last line, you're going to dot your Citron Green. I'm going to try to eyeball it from the center of my small petal there, where my other green dot is. So if you can draw an imaginary line, draw down, or if you want to do a physical line, please do so. I'll zoom in so you can see. Alright, so I'm just dotting on that last line there. I'm kind of in between the lines if you notice. And then with a small stylus or your pull tool, you're going to want to pull that dot up. Okay, so that's the smallest size. And again, if you know how to do swooshes, you're just going to pull up from the center. That's how I do it. And then I'm just going to pull up from either side of that. Okay? And that's how we can create that nice little swoosh. And like I said, I'm just going to go up to the line that's right below the other dot I'm going to make on the larger petal. Alright? So I'm going to get a little bit more paint on my stylus, and I'm just going to continue to pull up. Okay. Making sure that I have a nice tapered edge to that, and I'm just going to go up to that line there. I'm going to use a size 5 for the dot, that I have there, and I'm going to do it in the same color, Citron Green. So while we're moving through this process, we're just going to pick up a size 5 and dot that little area right there, okay? Okay, so now moving on, I finished my Citron Green swooshes. I'm going to go right into doing my Festive Green. I'm going to use the same color, which is the, I'm going to use the same dotting tool, which is the size 8. And I'm just going to dot, let me zoom in so you can see this right. I'm going to dot one line up from my swoosh I had, okay? And this is just going to act as a nice like fanned out type of element, okay? I'm leaving a little bit of space in between the two of them, so I'm really trying to tighten up that curve there when I pull up my swooshes, and I'm going to do that on the other side as well. I did do, if you notice, I did do the Citron Green swoosh for every petal all the way around as well. I know we were working on just the smaller leaf pattern ones, and then I moved into doing them. So remember that you have a swoosh for every petal for the flower. Alright, so your swoosh should look like something like that. I'm going to move on to the next ones and go all the way around. So now that I'm back, I did my swooshes. Alright, this is how it's going to start looking. I'm going to want to do probably one more color swoosh. Now I know we had 2 colors, so what we're going to do is set aside and get your tray, and we're going to mix a color. We're going to make a color. Alright, so I'm going to use the Festive Green as my base, and what I want you to do is get some of your Cadmium Yellow out. We're going to make like a yellow-green color, and I think that will tie in nicely with the other 2 colors. You don't need to have this perfect. You don't need to have the color that I have in particular. Just make sure that you're mixing 2 of the colors together, okay? I'm adding about, I'd say, a 1/4 teaspoon of the yellow paint to my green. The green was filled up in my tray. I want to guess I had about maybe a teaspoon of the paint mixed with the fluid medium. The pouring medium. And when I mix this together, you're going to drastically see how lighter and yellow toned that the green had become, okay? And this will just give us a nice variation of greens. If you have a color like this already made that's in your pile of paints, then go ahead and use that too. You can definitely do that. I have only so many different shades of greens. I find I get confused with that, so I like to make my own colors sometimes. So again, just use the size 8 dotting tool, and again, we're going to want to just dot again a little bit above the other one. So we're going to go a little bit further out and up. So if you see, I'm kind of staggering them. So when I zoom in, you can see how they're kind of going at an angle. It's like steps going up. Alright. So if the Citron Green, the first one was the base of the stairs, and I'm kind of working my way up, okay? I don't want them too far out, obviously, because it will kind of look a little funny when you're finished. So really just, eyeball this one, guys, and make sure that you are doing it nicely. I'm leaving the same amount of adequate space in between each one as well. Some people like to connect them and let the swoosh dry and then do another one. You can do that too. There's really no right or wrong way to make swooshes. You're the artist, so you make it the way that you want to make it, okay? I'm just kind of showing you a nice design to make, and I let you run free with how you want it to look. I make these videos really as a purpose of just relaxing, hanging out, painting with me, and you know, learning in the process. Okay, so that's how it should look. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do that for every single one of them as well. Alright, and so this is, again, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna dot a little bit above, and I'm gonna pull. If you notice, I'm making more of like a looks kind of like a golf club or a boot of some sort. Like the angles start to really curve as you get up higher when you do this kind of style. Okay guys, so we finished our swooshes, and so now we want to focus on doing that inner swirl effect that we're going to do here. So what I think we're going to do is I'm going to probably, instead of using a swoosh, a stylus pen, I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to be using probably, I'd say, the largest one I have, okay? And I'm going to use the Citron Green color. So I'm just going to mix that up, and then we're gonna use the brush. Now I'm going to show you a technique that I have done to where it makes this swoosh, the swirl effect, taper off at the edge, okay? Because, you know, realistically, when you're putting a brush down, that's going to be the thickest part first, and then it's going to taper out, correct? So what we're going to do to get this illusion that it's a, you know, wispy end to it, we want to start somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to zoom in, and what I'm going to do is I'm just got enough paint on my brush. I usually swirl it in my paint so I don't have a huge glob of paint. And I'm going to start in the center and then work my way up like that. And as I go up, I'm just going to lightly apply less pressure to it. And then I'm going to take the center part, and I'm also going to go around in a swoosh circle and to make my swirl. I might need like a few times to go around, so you know, I might put my paint back into the paint and then do my little swirl effect. And then the same with the other side. I'm going to put it down, and then I'm going to do the same side. And I'm just going to try to make that center part a little thicker. That's going to be my thickest point. Oop, I messed up a little bit, but that's okay. And so I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. There we go. And so I'm just going to keep going. So I start in the center, and then I work my way around, okay? Just like that. You notice my left one's a little bit larger, but that's okay. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to add these little spiky bits to it as well, and they kind of just act as like little thorns or something. So when I do the next one, I'm going to try to keep all my swirls within that little swoosh area where it kind of, you know, comes out. So you see how I'm doing it. I do my top portion first, and then I start in the middle, and then I do my little spiral. Okay. And then I'm just going to add like those little flares out that look like little thorns. This one I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to swoop around. Okay, and I'm not really like perfect at this, so, you know, be kind to me. You know, it's kind of hard to do these kind of techniques with brushes, so. And then we're just going to continue to go around in a circle format, okay? Okay, so we're almost done, guys. It's looking really great. So we're going to do the border dots now. So, and we're going to might do like a little element within the inner parts. I'm not sure yet. So why don't you pull out your golden straw color and mix it up. And again, we're just gonna do like a border of dots just to tie in the design, okay? I like to frame out some of the work when I do it. So again, I'm just doing the 1 part to 1 part, paint to medium ratio. I'm going to use the size 8 dotting tool for this. I'm just going to mix up my paint. Alright, so I'm just making sure this is really mixed up nicely. You don't want to be dotting with just like medium. It'll come out horrible. So just make sure your paint's nice and mixed before you apply it. So then I'm just going to dot at the last open negative space I have there, okay? Your dot should fall on that last line and at the edge, okay? I'm just going to try to keep them as close as possible without them mixing together, as usual. Okay, this is a quick time lapse you're watching and seeing. Okay. So that's finished, and we're done with that. So we're going to continue with the same color, guys, and we're going to add a few more little elements, okay? So with the same number 8 dotting tool, I'm going to dot into my golden straw color, and I'm going to do that little area that's above the swooshes I did, and that's it. I'm just going to do that spot. So on every single one of the ones that don't have a dot, it should be for the small petals. That whole area that we're doing should be for the golden straw. Okay, so that's it, guys. We're finished. We are fully done. I think the only things that I would like to recommend at this point is to make sure to remember to clean up your lines. I like to use Q-tips with water, and I just go through and I clean up all of the lines that I've had showing. If there's any tiny little dots that had fallen when I was transferring my dots over from the tray, I like to use the base color, the Black Forest Green, to, you know, with the little paintbrush, and I like to touch up those little areas. Just make sure you take the time to do all those steps, please, because, you know, you work really hard at this. You don't want, you know, any imperfections before you seal it. Okay, so what I do for a sealer, I use Mod Podge, and I use the satin usually, the clear acrylic sealer. And I don't really like a high gloss, but if you do like a high gloss, you can use the Mod Podge Gloss Clear Coat. These are spray, so if you prefer to have a rolling on or brushing it on, you can use the Mod Podge High Gloss. And this one actually acts as almost like a resin coat on the top. You know, just remember to do this in coats, okay? So you want to do thin coats of this and brushing. Just keep in mind that you could potentially get some streaking, some brush strokes shine through. You can also use resin as a coating, but, you know, the choice is yours on how you want to seal it. But that's really it. And just remember to sign the back, because you are the artist and you did create this piece. So that's super important. That's everything I need to show you guys. I really hope you enjoyed doing this tutorial with me. I enjoyed making it for you, and I always appreciate everyone's support and comments, and, you know, it just means a lot to me, guys. You're what keeps my channel going. So obviously, if you can, you know, give a like and share the video with your friends and family. Subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you can see future videos. Okay, and if you are getting to the end of your summer like I am, enjoy the rest of it, and let's welcome in the harvest and the new year coming to us. Happy dotting, guys. Take care.